Hello, everyone. You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Alan Basoyahe coming to you from Los Angeles, California. It is Thursday evening here, January 7, 2021. Tonight, we have updates from several of our correspondents across North America. Ace Ramirez in Gaithersburg tells us about Maryland Governor Larry Hogan blaming outgoing President Trump for yesterday's attack on the U.S. Capitol. Mayanne Manzano-Garzon in Sicklerville, New Jersey.
New Jersey governor signs historic economic recovery legislation.
Lovely Anderson in Fort Worth, Texas.
Texas governor swears in Senator Drew Springer and announces a new COVID-19 therapeutic infusion center in Austin. And MLK Day celebrations will be virtually this year in the city of Fort Worth.
Joining us tonight is Las Vegas Bureau Chief Anna Cui reporting about Nevada health officials revising the state's COVID-19 vaccination plan. Pro Regacion in North Hills, California.
Los Angeles launches COVID-19 vaccine points of dispensing for healthcare workers unable to access vaccines at their workplaces.
For business news, Bobby Soriano in New York reports about the Justice Department filing criminal charges against Boeing, a unified Democratic government looking to enact new business policies, Elon Musk becoming the wealthiest person in the world, and social media companies punishing President Trump. Plus, for tonight's roundtable, we will talk about those battered and deep-fried favorites because today, it's National Tempura Day. Our coverage begins now. The nation's lawmakers today, Thursday, formally certified Joe Biden as the winner of the presidential election, clearing the way for his inauguration on January 20. Republican Vice President Mike Pence certified the Electoral College count of 306 electors in favor of the Democrat against 232 in favor of outgoing Republican President Donald Trump.
The report we make is that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be the president and the vice president according to the ballots that have been given to us.
He has a statement.
The tally followed a joint session of the House and Senate that was interrupted by supporters of the president who stormed the U.S. Capitol Wednesday. World leaders and governments have expressed shock and outrage at the storming of the U.S. Capitol in Washington by supporters of President Donald Trump. In Germany, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said Thursday she was furious and saddened by the events and said Trump shared blame for the unrest. Merkel said she deeply regrets that President Trump has not conceded his defeat since November and again yesterday.
Wir alle haben ja die verstörenden Bilder von der Erstürmung des Kongresses gestern Abend gesehen. Und mich haben diese Bilder wütend und auch traurig gemacht.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said what happened at the nation's capital yesterday should not be tolerated.
Lawlessness and violence are the opposite of the values we know Americans and Israelis cherish. The rampage at the Capitol yesterday was a disgraceful act and it must be vigorously condemned. I have no doubt that American democracy will prevail. It always has.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Twitter condemned the disgraceful scenes in U.S. Congress. The United States stands for democracy around the world, and it is now vital that there should be a peaceful and orderly transfer of power. The EU's foreign policy chief condemned an assault on U.S. democracy. Josep Borrell Fontelles tweeted, "In the eyes of the world, American democracy tonight appears under siege." He added, "This is not America. The election results of November 3 must be fully respected." In France, French President Emmanuel Macron said, "We will not give in to the violence of a few who want to question democracy." In a video posted on his Twitter account, he added, "What happened today in Washington is not American." Meanwhile, Russian officials pointed to the storming of the U.S. Capitol as evidence of America's decline, with Konstantin Kostychov, chairman of the Russian Upper House's Foreign Affairs Committee, saying it showed U.S. democracy was limping on both feet. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said the chaos unleashed on the Capitol shows above all how fragile and vulnerable Western democracy is. Rouhani said, "We saw that, unfortunately, the ground is fertile for populism despite the advances in science and industry." He said he hopes the world and the next occupants of the White House will learn from it. In Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tweeted, "Canadians are deeply disturbed and saddened by the attack on democracy in the United States, our closest ally and neighbor." Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison condemned the very distressing scenes in the U.S. He tweeted, "We condemn these acts of violence and look forward to a peaceful transfer of government to the newly elected administration in the great American democratic tradition." In New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern tweeted, "Democracy, the right of people to exercise a vote, have their voice heard, and then have that decision upheld peacefully, should never be undone by a mob." NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg tweeted, "Shocking scenes in Washington, D.C. The outcome of this democratic election must be respected." Irish Premier Michelle Martin, who has invited the Irish-American Biden to visit his ancestral homeland early in his presidency, tweeted his condemnation. "The Irish people have a deep connection with the United States of America, built up over many generations. I know that many, like me, will be watching the scenes unfolding in Washington, D.C. with great concern and dismay." Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a Trump ally who has heaped praise on the outgoing U.S. president in the past, said he was distressed to see news about rioting and violence in Washington. The Hindu nationalist leader tweeted, "Orderly and peaceful transfer of power must continue. The democratic process cannot be allowed to be subverted through unlawful protests." In Turkey, which suffered an attempted coup in 2016, the foreign ministry called on, quote, "all parties in the U.S. to maintain restraint and prudence. We believe the U.S. will overcome this internal political crisis in a mature manner." In related news, Birmingham University's Professor Emeritus of International Studies Scott Lucas says that the invasion of the U.S. Capitol by a mob of inflamed President Donald Trump shows that the U.S. has two parallel political systems, one which acknowledges the rules and systems of democracy and one that does not, and that America's rivals will be celebrating the scenes of chaos. Take a look.
It was the end of Act One of a long-running play by Donald Trump, which is Donald versus the U.S. system, if the U.S. system was going to deny him more time in the White House. Act Two starts today, and it doesn't just involve Donald Trump, it doesn't just involve Joe Biden and the Democrats, it involves the future of the Republican Party. We have parallel U.S. political systems. We have a U.S. political system where people play within the rules. They acknowledge U.S. agencies, they acknowledge the courts, they acknowledge the other party, even if they disagree with it. And then we have a parallel system in which there is a man who does not play by the rules, who does not believe in the courts if they oppose him, who does not believe in Congress if it tries to check his power. Even after the violence, even after the charging of the Capitol, even after the threat against representatives and senators, 6 of those Republican senators and 122, more than 60% of the Republican representatives still sided with Donald Trump, still sided with his disinformation, and still voted against recognition of Joe Biden as the new president of the U.S. In the world of international politics, America's rivals, or those who wish to take advantage, whether it be in Beijing, whether it be in Moscow, and those who have long criticized the United States as being this imperialist foreign power, will be celebrating.
Meanwhile, the day after a mob of Donald Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol, Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser says what happened yesterday is textbook terrorism. Mayor Bowser also says Trump, along with the domestic terrorists, must be held accountable for what transpired yesterday.
Must be held accountable for this unprecedented attack on our democracy. What happened yesterday is what he wanted to happen, and we must not underestimate the damage he can do to our nation and our democracy over the next 2 weeks. And it's not just the president who must be held accountable, so too must the domestic terrorists who stormed the Capitol and threatened members of Congress. What happened yesterday is textbook terrorism.
A few hours ago, outgoing President Donald Trump, back on Twitter today, has for the first time acknowledged a new administration is taking office January 20. Trump also expressed disapproval on the attack on the Capitol yesterday. Let's move on to COVID news. Director of the World Health Organization's European branch, Dr. Hans Kluh, says more needs to be done to deal with the alarming situation brought on by a recently discovered variant of the novel coronavirus during the organization's weekly briefing on the pandemic. Take a look.
This is an alarming situation, which means that for a short period of time, we need to do more than we have done and to intensify the public health and social measures to be certain we can flatten the steep vertical line in some countries.
And now for today's COVID-19 numbers. According to the Coronavirus Resource Center of Johns Hopkins University and Medicine, as of 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday, January 7, 2021, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide is now more than 87,588,000. Top three on the list of countries with recorded cases are the U.S. with 21.3 million, India with 10.3 million, and Brazil with 7.8 million. To date, more than 1,890,000 have succumbed to this virus. Top three countries with the most number of COVID-19 related deaths are the U.S. at more than 362,000, Brazil at more than 198,000, and India at more than 150,000. When we come back, updates from our Eagle News correspondents in Gaithersburg, Maryland, Sicklerville, New Jersey, and Fort Worth, Texas. This is Eagle News America. Stay with us.
Impormasyong mahalaga sa taong bayan. Patas na pagbabalita. Papakinggan ang magkabilang panig. Lilinawin ang mga issue at kaagad na ihahatid ng objektibo. Mata ng Agila. Tumadagit ng pinakasariwang pangyayari, hindi lamang sa loob ng bansa, kundi sa iba't ibang panig ng daigdig. Mula sa Eagle News Teams at sa tulong ng makabagong teknolohiya, tiyak na makakalap kaagad ang katotohanan. Para sa mas matalas, malinaw at malalimang pagbabalita, ito ang mas pinatalas na Mata ng Agila. Inihahatid ng veteranong broadcast journalist na si Eli Saludar. Kasama si Binibining Pilipinas Intercontinental 2019, Emma Tiglao. At pinangungunahan ng batikang mamamahayag ng bansa, Vic De Leon Lima. Mata ng Agila, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 hanggang alas 8 ng gabi, dito sa Net 25.
You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Alan Basoyahe in Los Angeles. In Maryland, a day after the world-shocking violence incident that transpired at the U.S. Capitol, Governor Larry Hogan addresses the state and expresses his frustration at what he calls an attack on U.S. democracy. Bureau Chief Ace Ramirez reports.
Thank you, Alan. The mob may have shattered glass, but they did not and they will not shatter our democracy. These are Governor Hogan's words as he gave an update on Maryland's response to the Capitol siege yesterday. Recounting the events that transpired when hundreds of militiamen and insurgents forced their way into the Capitol building yesterday, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, speaking from the Maryland State House, the old Senate chamber, emotionally expressed dismay and disappointment in what he calls a shameful attack on U.S. democracy.
It is somewhat fitting that we are addressing this shameful attack on our democracy from this historic State House, which is the very first peacetime capital of the United States. After all, it was right here that the peaceful transition of power was born 236 years ago, after leading the colonies to victory in the Revolutionary War. General Washington resigned his commission as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army right here, right there, in our old Senate chamber.
Hogan did not hold back his tongue and openly blamed President Donald Trump for the attack that happened yesterday. Hogan said that yesterday's siege was an attack to the generations of Americans who sacrificed their lives, their honor, and their fortune, and this was all because of Trump fanning the flames of lies and deceit.
Generations of Americans have sacrificed their lives, their fortunes, and sacred honor so that the miracle of self-government and the orderly transition of power could become commonplace. Over the last 2 months, this sacred tradition has come under attack from our own president, who has chosen to fan the flames of hate and mislead millions of voters through lies and conspiracy theories, rather than face the reality of his own defeat. An oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. It's clear to me that President Trump has abandoned this sacred oath. What we saw in the nation's capital was not just an attack on the people's representatives or historic buildings and our law enforcement. It was an attack on the rule of law, the foundations of self-government, and who we are as Americans. The mob may have shattered glass, but they did not, and they will not, shatter our democracy.
Maryland National Guard members were the first to arrive in Washington, D.C. during the siege of the Capitol. According to Hogan, under federal law, the mayor of the District of Columbia does not have authority over the Guard, and an approval from the Secretary of Defense is required before allowing the Maryland National Guard in the District of Columbia.
I also told them that I authorized the mobilization of the Maryland National Guard, and that I was ready, willing, and able to immediately deploy them to the Capitol. However, we were repeatedly denied approval to do so. Under federal law, the mayor of the District of Columbia does not have authority over the Guard, and we must receive approval from the Secretary of Defense before we're able to send our Maryland National Guard across the border into the federal city, into the District of Columbia.
Despite the quick mobilization and willingness to immediately deploy the Maryland National Guard to the Capitol, the approval came from the Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy, an hour and a half later. Governor Hogan assured D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser full support in the days and weeks to come. Hogan added that Maryland State Police commanders are in constant communication with D.C. law enforcement officials and will continue to provide any further assistance that they require. Hogan ended the press conference with a promise to do everything in his power to rebuild trust in what makes this nation great, to heal old wounds rather than inflame them, and to make sure that democracy, that the people, always prevail. From Gaithersburg, Maryland, I'm Ace Ramirez. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Alan.
Thanks, Ace, for that timely and informative report. In New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy signs into law an economic recovery legislation to help small business amid these very trying times. In Sicklerville, Mayanne Manzano-Gerzon reports.
Thank you, Alan. In a report released by the Office of the New Jersey Governor today in Trenton, Governor Phil Murphy signed into law the landmark New Jersey Economic Recovery Act of 2020, which will provide economic support for small businesses while propelling New Jersey's economic recovery and growth for much of the next decade. This bill will also bolster the state's startup and entrepreneur economy through implementation of the Innovation Evergreen Fund, a first-of-its-kind program that will combine state funds with private capital to support innovative new businesses. Take a look.
Future rides on the backs of the small businesses who employ the majority of our fellow residents, especially those owned and operated by women, people of color, and veterans. The small businesses who are first in line to benefit when a new project nearby breaks ground. And I'm particularly pleased that this initiative's $50 million investment in our Main Street small businesses through grants, loans, and other assistance, so they could be at the head of our recovery. Our future rides on the entrepreneurs with big and innovative ideas, but who need capital to get their vision to market. And it rides with communities like this, ready to see their historic building stocks or brownfields repurposed and their streets re-energized. This is how we propel our economy moving forward to be a strong and resilient post-COVID reality and future. There's so much throughout this package that is good for our state. Strong protections for our union brothers and sisters, a commitment to eradicating food deserts, a vision for turning urban brownfields and long-ignored properties into accessible, walkable, affordable, and active communities where good jobs are created and people can live, work, and raise their families. We built this program on the twin pillars of transparency and fairness to fuel the creation of good-paying, future-focused jobs and ensured sense of
statistical report of New Jersey's COVID-19 cases. According to the Department of Health of New Jersey, there are 6,340 new positive cases reported today, bringing the statewide total to 510,839 New Jerseyans who have tested positive. Sadly, we have 123 new confirmed COVID-19 deaths, pushing the total to 17,587 fatalities. And Alan, for some weather update, it's currently 9:23 in the evening here in New Jersey, and it's currently clear. It is now 30 degrees Fahrenheit or -1 degree Celsius. The high today was 45 degrees Fahrenheit or 7 degrees Celsius, and the low will be 25 degrees Fahrenheit or -4 degrees Celsius. In Sicklerville, New Jersey, Mayanne Manzano-Gerzon, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Alan.
Mayanne, what other things will this newly signed bill do for New Jerseyans?
Well, good question, Alan. Well, according to state officials during the signing event earlier today, the bill will not only strengthen New Jersey's economy, Alan, but will also help address some of the long-standing inequities faced by the most distressed communities in New Jersey. It will also build a stronger and fair economy that invests in innovation in our communities and in our small businesses the right way. Alan?
Well, let's talk about tax breaks. How much could be awarded under the new law?
Well, big, Alan, under the new law, up to $1.5 billion in tax breaks could be awarded annually for 6 years, which could include additional 7th year if there are still tax incentives yet to be awarded. Alan?
Okay, and so this law must have some backing. Can you tell us who are some of the principal sponsors of the bill?
Well, the bill's chief sponsors, Alan, are Assemblywoman Eliana Pintor-Marin, Senator Teresa Ruiz of the District of Essex, and Senator Paul Sarlo of the District of Bergen. Alan?
And you know, Mayanne, we're very happy to hear that part of that law is that food relief program, the food desert. I'm sorry, not desert, not dessert. It's desert food relief program. And of course, because today is a National Tempura Day. Wondering, out there where you live, is tempura a big thing or just sort of like a treat?
Well, I don't know where here in my area, but in my household, yes, it's a big thing, Alan. So we like the topic for tonight's banter.
Excellent. I can't wait to hear more from you about what's so amazing about tempura. And you know, before I let you go, Mayanne, I'll give you a little clue. For myself, just personally speaking, tempura has actually allowed me to keep my friends. And I'm going to let you think about that while we head to the end of our broadcast. Thanks, Mayanne. Several stories from the Lone Star State tonight. Joining us is Eagle News correspondent Lovely Anderson with the details. Lovely.
Thank you, Alan, and howdy from the Lone Star State. Weather here in Texas, it's a bit muggy and cold, so we are somewhat into winter, into the new year. On Wednesday, Senator Drew Springer was sworn in by Governor Greg Abbott at the governor's mansion in Austin, as State Senator Springer will be representing Texas Senate District 30. On Monday, the governor also announced that a COVID-19 therapeutic infusion center will be established in the city of Austin to treat outpatient cases of COVID-19. The infusion center is spearheaded by the Texas Division of Emergency Management through a partnership between the city, county, and local agencies. The center has already begun accepting patients since Wednesday. Patients who meet certain criteria with a referral from a hospital or a doctor will be treated with Regeneron. Governor Abbott stated, reducing hospitalizations is a crucial component of our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we will continue to work with local partners to ensure that they have the resources that they need to keep their communities safe. Meanwhile, in our city, the city of Fort Worth, the city issued a statement that this year's Martin Luther King Day parade has been canceled. However, the legacy of Dr. King will be commemorated virtually this year with an online film screening, a moderated discussion, and a series of free events. The online film, John Lewis, Good Trouble, will explore the relationship between two historic civil rights leaders, Dr. King and the late U.S. Congressman John Lewis. The film, directed by acclaimed filmmaker Don Porter, chronicles the life and career of Democratic representative from Georgia, which includes a 60-plus years of social activism and legislative action on civil rights, voting rights, gun control, healthcare reform. Using rare footage and present-day interviews with Lewis, Porter explores his childhood experiences, his inspiring family, and his fateful meeting with Dr. King in 1957. For this presentation, you will need to register to receive the link for a virtual screening room view the film. Then, be sure to join in on a thought-provoking moderated discussion with the city's Chief Equity Officer and Director of Diversity and Inclusion Department. To join the discussion via WebEx, a separate registration is required. The WebEx platform can be accessed via a computer or a smartphone application. In addition to the city's virtual program, many free community events will be held all week long from January the 14th through the 18th to celebrate the MLK holiday. Events include board discussions with the City of Fort Worth officials, a Dr. Martin Luther King celebration honoring Dr. King as a civil rights icon and activist, and also a canned food and blanket drop-off and a family fun day at the ranch near Berry Street. And a variety of musical celebrations will be held all over the city, and a special tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Featuring the I Have a Dream speech via presentation via YouTube. Remember, you will have to register for these events. To learn more about the events, visit the Jim Austin online website. I hope you all are staying safe and healthy. And just a reminder to always choose love over hate. In Fort Worth, Texas, I'm Lovely Anderson, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Ellen.
That's a great message, Lovely. And you know, we do need it, especially these days, because a lot is happening in the United States. What are your thoughts on everything going on in the Capitol?
You know, with everything going on in the Capitol, I have to quote Senator-elect Reverend Raphael Warnock in his recent Twitter statement. In his statement, he said, "In this moment of unrest, violence, and anger, we must remember the words of Dr. King. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Let each of us try to be a light to see our country out of this dark moment." And that whole statement just rings so much to me right now.
And speaking of your city, the city of Fort Worth, canceling the parade and holding a virtual celebration for MLK Jr. Day. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great response for the city to do in light of the COVID-19. I think it's important that we take all precautionary measures to keep everyone safe, to keep our community safe. And it's something that's it's very good for everybody because we can all have access to it through our phones, our computers. So it's a good thing. It's something new, something different, but everything's going to be new in this new year. So looking forward to it.
That's the right sentiment, Lovely. And now, whenever we think of Texas, we think of barbecue. I can't escape that. I think that's the same for you there in Fort Worth. And since today is National Tempura Day, what's the comparison between barbecue and tempura? Do they come close, or is tempura kind of like a distant rival?
No, there's no comparison. Barbecue here, and here in Texas, we do beef ribs, so it's kind of different. But ribs and tempura, there's no comparison.
Well, I'm going to ask you more about tempura when we come to our discussion later on the broadcast. But something that I wanted to let your imagination simmer in this marinade, like what I said, tempura has helped me keep friends. And again, I'll let you think about that before we get to our discussion. Thanks, Lovely, for that report.
You're welcome.
Up next, we have updates from Las Vegas, Nevada, and North Hills, California. Eagle News will return in a moment. Stay with us.
Ikaw ba ay may natatanging talento sa pagkanta? Ito na ang pagkakataon mong ipamalas ang inyong galing at manalo ng 2 million pesos. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang online audition ng Tagisan ng Galing Part 2. Kaya kung ikaw ay 18 to 65 years old, magpadala na ng audition video sa tagisananggaling@gmail.com or contact Nikki sa 0977-651-9504. Narito ang guideline sa paggawa ng inyong audition videos. You can also visit our Facebook fan page for more information. Sali na at maging bahagi ng pinakamalaki at pinakamalawak na talent competition on Philippine television and online. Tagisan ng Galing Part 2, dito lang sa Net 25.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Alan Baso-Yahe in Los Angeles. In the state of Nevada, health officials are modifying their COVID-19 vaccination plan. The Bureau Chief Anna Cui tells us why.
Yes, thank you, Alan. In a recent press conference, Nevada Governor Steve Sisolak, who was joined by Sharon Bennett for part of that conference, she's the immunization program manager from the Nevada Department of Health and Human Services. And they announced that while while they don't plan to deviate from the CDC guidelines regarding the overall vaccine distribution, there are plans to move people 75 years and older, one tier up to tier 2 from tier 3. And that tier 2 is comparable to the phase 1B of the CDC guidelines. Bennett said that the Nevada COVID-19 vaccine playbook remains to be fluid, and they will be updating it as the vaccine rollout continues. Now, according to Bennett, at that time of the conference last week, close to 26,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines had been administered in the state. That number accounts to about 20% of the state's initial December allocation from both Pfizer and Moderna. Somebody actually asked, why such a low number? Why are we not seeing more shots in arms? And Bennett said that that low number reported is due to the lag in health officials entering data in Nevada Web IC, which is the state immunization information system. And I think that's pretty much, the same, similar to what we're hearing in other states. I believe ACE reported that 2 nights ago that, they're falling behind, but it's also because related to reporting. Now, good news is, since that press conference, now different health district in the different counties, including Southern Nevada Health District, which is the most populous in Nevada, now displays the number of COVID vaccines administered in county. And as of today, it reports a total of 21,081 vaccines administered. Washoe County, which is the second largest in terms of population, and that's up north, reports over 5,500 COVID vaccines administered. And Carson City health officials announced about 1,200 COVID vaccines have been administered so far to the Quad-Quanti region of Carson City, Lyon County, Douglas County, and Story County. And here, Alan, we see more of that adjustment in the Nevada vaccine playbook, because Carson City Health and Human Services actually started providing the vaccine Wednesday to interested staff members from school districts in that same region, which is good news. Their goal is to be able to, reopen schools, so that's good news. According to the Nevada Independent, the health department serving that region received clearance from the state immunization program to begin vaccinating school employees, but it's all going to depend, of course, on vaccine inventory and appointment availability. In addition, David Jensen, who's the superintendent of another county in Humboldt County, which is also in northern Nevada, said that school employees from that school district will also began receiving the vaccination actually as early as December 18, when the county found itself with extra doses available. So, Jensen said that roughly 140 district employees have expressed interest in the vaccine, and of those, 80 people have either received it or scheduled an appointment. Now, Alan, going back to the press conference, one of the challenges that they discussed was the communication surrounding the vaccination program. Even with me, just my daily interaction with coworkers and people, some are asking about the vaccine, where can they get it? I've actually had people ask me to call the doctor's office to see if they're providing it. So Bennett said that they recognize that getting that word out to the public about when and where they can get the vaccine needs to be improved, so they will be making some enhancement on that messaging strategy. As of today, according to the revised Nevada Tier 1 vaccination campaign, as I mentioned, people 75 years and older can get the vaccine at designated pharmacies, but the details have yet to be determined. In Las Vegas and the Queen, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Alan.
Anna, thank you for that information about the vaccine in Vegas. But what about the COVID situation? What's the status there?
So as of today, there are over 240,000 cumulative cases in the state, Alan, and sadly over 3,300 deaths to date. We have a 14-day average positivity rate of 21.3%, and compared that to 17.3 about a month ago. Now, the good news is, in regards to hospitalizations, they are seeing, according to the Nevada Hospital Association website, they are seeing, some stabilization, in the peak. So, as well as decreased ED emergency room related COVID cases. So we'll hope for the best. Alan.
Absolutely. And are there any changes you can speak of that's being made by the governor?
Well, in that same press conference, a question actually arose by one of the reporters and asked Governor Sisolak if there's going to be changes to. Right now, we're still in that statewide pause, which is about to expire in 8 days, January 15. So he was asked, are we assessing effectiveness? How are we doing that? Because our numbers are still, is still trending high. And he said, unfortunately, right now, it's really difficult to assess it because of the holiday gatherings. We saw a little bit of drop in our numbers after 2 weeks after the Thanksgiving, but then came more holiday festivities. And I'm sure you heard, Alan, how many thousands of people came to Vegas to celebrate New Year's. So, we'll see. Right now, we're still waiting. Probably, according to health officials, we're probably not going to see the results of that. We're now 1 week into it, probably in another week, and we'll keep you updated. Alan.
Right, same for us. We're also looking to find out if those numbers of COVID cases will start to dissipate, start to lessen, especially after the holidays have enough time has elapsed from them. Anna, National Tempura Day, and first question I want to ask you: Do you like tempura?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, that's good because later on the broadcast, I'm going to ask you and our other correspondents about, to share stories, experiences, or your opinion about tempura. But one thing I'll ask before I let you go, there's the dipping sauce for tempura. Can you imagine yourself eating tempura sans or minus the dipping sauce?
Actually, funny you ask, Alan, because I don't use the dipping sauce. I actually dip it in soy sauce with the wasabi instead.
Oh, okay. Well, you make your own dipping sauce, and I've heard many people use that approach. But listen, Anna, when the pandemic is lifted and I'm able to visit Vegas, let's go because I know I can take all your dipping sauce away from you. Thanks for the report, Anna. We'll see you in a little bit.
Thanks, Alan.
Good news for healthcare workers in Los Angeles who are not able to access the COVID-19 vaccine at their workplaces. In North Hills, Eagle News correspondent Pro Rogacion has the details.
Thank you, Alan. Los Angeles launches COVID-19 vaccine points of dispensing, or pods or PODs, on city parks to vaccinate healthcare workers who are unable to access the vaccine at their workplaces. City and county officials joined efforts to open 4 additional COVID-19 vaccination sites this week on various parks and recreation sites of Los Angeles' most vulnerable regions, which includes Richie Valens Recreational Center in the Northeast San Fernando Valley. Just last week, Los Angeles opened the first 3 COVID-19 vaccine pods at current testing and flu vaccination sites, which are located among the most impacted neighborhoods in the city with test positivity rates between 23 to 31%. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti states, "This vaccine pods are only the beginning of our campaign to distribute COVID-19 vaccines safely and equitably to all Angelenos, part of our ongoing comprehensive effort to stop the spread of this virus and eradicate this pandemic. The delivery of the COVID-19 vaccine is being handled by the county in joint efforts with the city, the Los Angeles Fire Department, Curative, the Community Organized Relief Effort, or CORE, and the University of Southern California School of Pharmacy." Agatha Basilar Stevens, the state's general manager of Curative, says, "Our California team is proud to be deploying these life-saving COVID-19 vaccines to Los Angeles and provide communities who need it most with relief during one of the worst stages in the pandemic." Curative have been the leader in delivering COVID-19 testing to the greater Los Angeles area, and our testing sites have been fully equipped to administer the vaccine via our dedicated on-site healthcare workers. At this time, the COVID-19 vaccines are being administered to healthcare workers at the high and medium risk levels in tiers 1 and 2 of phase 1A according to the county's vaccination guidelines, which is also aligned with the state's instructions. In North Hills, California, Pearl Rogacion, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Alan.
Pearl, who are the healthcare workers at the high and medium risk levels in tiers 1 and 2 of phase 1A that's eligible now to be vaccinated?
Alan, according to the Los Angeles County's COVID-19 vaccination guidelines, the high-risk healthcare worker are those in the front lines, providing care directly to patients and those who are exposed to bodily fluids like physicians, nurses, and staff working in environmental sciences, while the medium-risk healthcare worker are those who have indirect or limited contact with patients. Tier 1 of phase 1A are those in skilled nursing facilities, long-term care facilities, and hospitals, including treatment and mental health facilities, while Tier 2 are those working in home care or home health care organizations and intermediate care facilities, including urgent care clinics and outreach centers. The COVID-19 vaccine will eventually be available to everyone, but at this time, these are the priority groups of people being given access to vaccine. Alan.
When the vaccine does become available for you, are you planning to get it as soon as you can? Are you going to wait around a bit? What is your stance on that?
Alan, it depends upon the feedback of those who have gotten the vaccine. Since the vaccine became available, I have been really checking on the side effects to those who have like allergies, because I have allergies and I just wanted to make sure that it won't trigger my allergies or it won't make me sick. That's all that matters, Alan.
Well, certainly something to be careful of. Going away from the vaccine and talking about COVID, one of the potential symptoms could be, as we've all learned, loss of taste, which would be terrible today because, as you know, Pearl, today is National Tempura Day. And I have it on good authority that your sons can be kind of picky eaters. So question, we're going to ask you later more about what you want to talk about for tempura. Are your boys pretty picky when it comes to things like tempura?
It depends on what tempura, but pretty much tempura would be I will tell the story about tempura later on. We have a story about that. So yeah, it depends on the tempura, but yeah, we eat tempura.
According to my research, tempura can be meat, seafood, or vegetables. I can't wait to hear your story. And like what I mentioned earlier, I do have a story as well of how tempura has helped me keep friends. And I hope that is tantalizing, will whet your appetite. Maybe not as much as tempura does, but anyway, I hope it'll be of interest to you. I'll talk to you in a little bit, Pearl.
Later, Alan.
Business news and tonight's roundtable when we come back. This is Eagle News America. Stay with us.
Ang ating quarter 1 champions ay walang iba kundi ang The Sirens! Abot kamay na ng The Sirens ang kampyonato at ang pinaka-aasam na 2 million peso grand prize as they dance their way to victory last Sunday sa ating quarter 1 semifinals. At ngayon naman ay ipagpapatuloy natin ang ating search para sa susunod na idol sa sayawan as we open yet again our weekly qualifiers.
Lutong bagong game show ang Net 25 para sa lahat ng mahihilig magmukbang at kumanta. Pag-combine natin yan equals all-out kantahan at mukbangan in one. Ang headline ng balitang ito ay It's Singing Time!
It's Singing Time!
Mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 8 hanggang alas 9 ng gabi. Dito lang sa Net 25.
Several stories from our business desk in New York. Bobby Soriano files this report.
Good evening. U.S. markets have closed. Here are your latest business headlines. In breaking news at the end of today, multiple outlets are reporting that Boeing has been charged with criminal conspiracy by the Department of Justice. The company was also fined $2.5 billion as part of a deferred prosecution agreement that accuses Boeing of intentionally covering up information from regulators who were investigating the 737 MAX fatal crashes. Acting Assistant Attorney General David Burns of the Justice Department's Criminal Division said in a statement that the tragic crashes of Lion Air Flight 610 and Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 exposed fraudulent and deceptive conduct by employees of one of the world's leading commercial airplane manufacturers. Boeing's employees chose the path of profit over candor by concealing material information from the FAA concerning the operation of its 737 MAX airplane and engaging in an effort to cover up their deception. Shares of Boeing were down 1% after market hours following the news of the charges. Democrats have secured their majority in the Senate after winning both seats from Tuesday's runoff election in Georgia. With the Senate, House, and presidency now all Democratic, President-elect Joe Biden will now have a stronger chance at enacting many of the economic and business policies that he previewed on the campaign trail, including raising tax rates for corporations and high-income earners, and providing additional subsidies to companies that are looking to combat climate change. The majority in both the House and the Senate are very thin, however, so Democrats will have to make sure that the progressive and moderate wings of the party can compromise to enact meaningful legislation. Analysts are predicting an over $2 trillion increase in taxes spread out over the next decade if President-elect Biden is able to enact his policies. But shorter-term goals include passing $2,000 stimulus payments for all Americans, which has gained support from some Republican lawmakers. Meanwhile, the violence of yesterday's protests in the Capitol have not deterred growth for sectors of the economy that look to benefit greatly from a united Democratic government. Fueled by Biden's agenda to support clean energy, Tesla shares today rose over 6% intraday to make owner Elon Musk the new reigning wealthiest person in the world with a net worth of approximately $190 billion, surpassing Jeff Bezos of Amazon, who has held the title the past 3 years. In his own unique way, Mr. Musk shrugged off the achievement, tweeting, quote, "Well, back to work," which he will need to do if he is to succeed at hitting analyst target of 5.2 million electric vehicles delivered to consumers by 2030. Finally, with the Trump administration soon coming to a close, social media companies are looking to make sure to do their part in a safe and peaceful transition. For the first time in his presidency, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and Twitter gave out heavy punishments to President Trump after his perceived condoning of the violent protests in the Capitol yesterday, with all 4 platforms disabling his accounts until at least after the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden. Social media companies have been very careful of censoring President Trump during his term in office for fear of being seen as biased against conservative-leaning outlets. However, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg believed the president's comments regarding the protests in the Capitol were the last straw, with a post on the social media platform indicating the risk posed by the continued use of social media by President Trump are simply too great. Shares of Facebook fell on the announcement by Mr. Zuckerberg yesterday, but more or less have completely rebounded today, along with the broader tech sector. U.S. stock indices surged today despite the protest yesterday, as investors and analysts expect to see heavy government spending to support businesses in the coming year. Reporting from New York, Bobby Soriano, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thanks, Bobby, for that report. And we also know that shares in deep-fried battered food are also up just for today, January 7, because it is National Tempura Day. Yes, we're talking about that food that many of us like to eat, that we dip in tensuyu, that special dipping sauce that makes that experience complete. And with us today, we have our Eagle News correspondents to share their opinions, experiences, and stories about tempura. We're going to go first to Mayanne. Mayanne, can you chime in and talk to us about all things tempura?
Well, Alan, at buffets, I would always get shrimp tempura. But here at home, we love making portobello mushroom and zucchini tempura. And last time, Ace, it's funny, I tried broccoli tempura in the hopes that my 1-year-old would eat it. but it wasn't very successful. So broccoli tempura is out.
Well, that's certainly a healthy take on tempura. Let's go to Anna. Anna, what do you want to tell us about tempura?
Well, Alan, just like Mayanne, one of my all-time favorites is shrimp tempura, of course. Sweet potato tempura is also one of my favorites. But like I mentioned earlier, I do like it. I do like dipping it in my soy sauce with wasabi instead of the sauce. I don't even know what that tastes like.
It tastes great. It tastes wonderful. And you know, Anna, thank you for mentioning the sweet potato. We totally forget about sweet potato all the time. It's so delicious. And as a tempura, it's just absolutely incredible. Now let's go to Fort Worth, Texas with Lovely. Talk to us.
You know, during the break, we were discussing about tempura, and somebody asked a question for all our Filipino viewers in the Philippines. Is ukoy, that shrimp, egg stuffed noodle, whatever, is that considered tempura? Just a question. And it's funny because I actually asked my mom. And I asked her, I said, Ma, is ukoy, is that considered tempura? And she just shoved me off like, ukoy. No. But no, so apparently ukoy is not considered tempura. However, I enjoy shrimp tempura. Who doesn't like shrimp? Shrimp tempura, I love, especially in the rolls, the sushi rolls. That's my fave.
I think if I were to ask my mom if that was tempura, that ukoy, she probably wouldn't talk to me anymore. Thanks, Lovely, for sharing with us your discussion with your mom. Let's move on to Pearl. Pearl, what about tempura?
Yeah, Alan, my boys and I would go when the restaurants were still open and you can still dine in. We would go to our favorite place in LA, wherein it's tempura restaurant. It's like you would see them preparing your tempura. So it's like you would just point at it or tell them, I would love to have 2 of this shrimp and then 1 of each, everything. So that's what I would do. I would always ask 1 of each so I can like have a buffet or a plate of every tempura that they have. So, and that's, my kids also does that. And of course they would put a lot of shrimp tempura on it. It's pure, shrimp tempura only for them. So that's a treat to us when we go there.
Pearl, I think I know what restaurant you're talking about, where you point at the food. But the problem is I would point at it, then point in my mouth, and they wouldn't feed me. They expected me to feed myself. But great, I'm glad we're all on the same page. We all like tempura. And as you know, I mentioned earlier, my story about tempura, which by the way, I love, I adore, is tempura has helped me keep my friends. My story is, it's not National Sushi Day because National Sushi Day is in June. All my friends love sushi. I'm the only one who doesn't like sushi. And so to keep myself, that I can still go with my friends when I say, let's grab sushi, I say, I'm with you, I'm gonna have tempura. So thanks to tempura, I'm still able to go with my friends who think that I'm the weirdest person in the world. They think I'm the only person in the world who doesn't eat sushi. But thanks to tempura, I can still hang with my friends in a Japanese restaurant. Thank you, correspondents, for talking to us about all things tempura. And now we want you to stay on board as we also continue to thank our healthcare workers, first responders, and essential workers with a big round of applause. We appreciate all of you. And that is today's Eagle News America. Thank you for joining us. I'm Alan Bosoyahe. We live in interesting times.